Hey people, so there's this optical illusion I've noticed, but first I've got to remind you of this mathematical fact.
Note, I didn't shower before recording this video, so yes, my skin is super oily and grimy. But that's not out of sloppiness, that's out of setting a new fashion trend that millions of people, including probably many of you, are already partaking in.
So we all know the angles of a quadrilateral always add up to 360 degrees. Oh wait. You didn't know that? I'm honestly not surprised. But we can figure this out intuitively by imagining a car driving around the perimeter of any quadrilateral. Since it makes one full loop, it has to rotate 360 degrees per loop, right? The only places where the car can rotate are at the vertices, and the amount it rotates per vertex is notated in purple. So it goes from being here and turns about 45 degrees to now be angled here. And since one whole loop corresponds to a full 360 degree turn of the car, the purple angles, which are exterior angles, add up to 360 degrees. Now if we look at the sum of all the purple and green angles, that's 4 semicircles. 4 times 180 degrees is 720 degrees. So now we know purple and green add up to
720 degrees.
So because purple is 360,
that means green is also 360.
And the green angles are the interior angles of the quadrilateral. So there we go. The angles of a quadrilateral are 360 degrees. Enough of this. On to the actual optical illusion. I'm willing to bet that at least half of my audience can see this illusion from right where they're sitting, which makes this one of the most accessible optical illusions ever. You might be wondering, how can half my audience see the same thing? Well, you'll find out in a bit. When you're looking at any object with your eyes, I want you to imagine taking a snapshot of that object like a camera. If you take a look at anything rectangular with your eyes, and then import that into your image editing software and then trace out the perimeter, it might not look like a rectangle anymore, right? Depending on the perspective you look at it with, it could look like a rectangle, or maybe it would look like a trapezoid, or a parallelogram, or a completely asymmetric quadrilateral. To clarify, this isn't the optical illusion. I mean, it's pretty obvious that any rectangle or any object at all will appear distorted if you rotate it or the camera. Duh. Here's what I want you to realize. Regardless of the transformation that rectangle goes through, when it comes out the other side, the resulting shape will always be a quadrilateral. That's because there were 4 corners and 4 edges before, and there will still be 4 corners and 4 edges afterward. And that is the definition of a quadrilateral anyway. Furthermore, we already know one special thing about quadrilaterals, that their angles add up to 360 degrees.
It's true for this trapezoid, it's true for this parallelogram, it's true for this asymmetric quadrilateral, and it'll be true for literally every quadrilateral ever.
So with that all in mind, we can finally get to the illusion.
To view it, you need to go into a fairly small room with a rectangular ceiling.
I figured that most of you are already in such a room since we spend most of our time indoors and the most common room shape is rectangular.
Okay, now look up. Can you see the whole ceiling in your field of view at once? No? You might need to lie on the floor and look up to see it. Once you've done that, imagine taking a photo of that rectangular ceiling and opening that photo in an image editing software. The shape your ceiling traces might not be a rectangle anymore, but it will still be a quadrilateral, right? So the angles should still add up to 360 regardless of the distortion. Now look at each corner individually. Based on the geometry of rectangular prisms, right angles will always look like obtuse angles from inside that rectangular prism. So the first angle will look like it's greater than 90 degrees, so will the second, third, and fourth. So we've got 4 angles, all of which are greater than 90 degrees. That means the sum is greater than 360 degrees. But it's a quadrilateral, so the sum should be exactly 360 degrees. What's going on? A simpler way to feel this anomaly is imagine a car driving down a road tracing the perimeter of the ceiling. So it's going along, and then it makes a turn shallower than 90 degrees. And then it drives along a straight road, and then it makes a turn shallower than 90 degrees. Then it goes again. This corner is just about 90 degrees.
And then that corner right there is again shallower than 90 degrees.
After making 3 slight right turns and 1 90-degree right turn, the car shouldn't have completed a full 360-degree turn. But here it is, having done exactly 1 full revolution, and it's now in the same orientation as it started, which just doesn't make sense.
This is the optical illusion, but yeah, I'll admit it's more of an optical phenomenon because it's not that exciting. Anyway, here's my attempt at an explanation for why this happens. Your vision is not exactly the same as a 2D array of pixels, because your vision surrounds all of you, so it's a lot more like a sphere, which is curved. And quadrilaterals on a sphere can have angles that add up to more than 360. Check it out. We start at this point here, which is 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 2 135-degree angles. So if you add up all of these numbers, it's 450 degrees, which is more. And the extreme of this would be to just draw a single line down the equator and claim any 4 points along that equator are vertices of a quadrilateral whose angles are all 180 degrees. So the sum of that is 720, which is way more than 360. So you can see there's my second quadrilateral right there. That's hella cool. By the way, this great circle that is also quadrilateral would be your view of the ceiling if you could press your eyes against the ceiling and still have a wide enough field of view to see the whole thing. But I don't want this to diminish how wacky the illusion feels to me, because I just imagine my vision exactly like a camera or a TV screen, a 2D plane in front of me. I definitely don't see it as curved onto a sphere. Speaking of spheres, let's bring another camera into the discussion. A fisheye lens. These lenses have a wider field of view than most normal cameras, at the expense that straight lines no longer appear straight. By the way, normal cameras are called rectilinear because they keep all lines linear, and it's like a projection from the 3D space onto a rectangle plane. And they can have as wide fields of view as the fisheye lens, up to 180 degrees, but the objects that appear on the outside, like the peripheral, will get very distorted and stretched out, which you don't see with your human eyes, so you know your human eyes are not rectilinear lenses.
But could they be fisheye lenses? Well, here's one piece of evidence supporting it.
Just like on a sphere, a fisheye lens can have quadrilaterals with angles adding up to more than 360 degrees, thanks to the fact that edges can bend. So yeah, there you go.
But here's another piece of evidence that convinces me my eyes aren't fisheye lenses.
I finally put my contact lenses in, but I don't think the fisheye lens explanation really cuts it for me, because in my mind, I am perceiving that ceiling line right there as 100% straight. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that it's straight, because how could it be anything else? It's a straight line. So because of that, I'm thinking that my eyes can't be rectilinear cameras, nor can they be fisheye cameras. So the only explanation left is what I described earlier about them being a sector of a sphere. So my vision is literally curved in 3D space, which means that every single 2D screen out there, every single phone, laptop, camera, cannot represent what I actually see, because they're all flat. They will never display that illusion of quadrilaterals having angles adding up to more than 360
with straight edges,
the way I experience it. And I don't know, that feels a little spooky to me. Anyway, that's the whole illusion, and if I'm ever sitting bored in a classroom, or I'm trying to fall asleep in my bed but I can't, then sometimes I still stare at the ceiling and think about that illusion, because like, it's always there for me to look at. It's so accessible almost all of my life. So if you're ever bored, you can do the same thing. And yay, video's over.